Blog Talk Radio.
Hello, everyone. Good morning. This is Laurie Smith on Blog Talk Radio. It is 6 o'clock here in the morning, Tuesday morning, January the 3rd. Glad to be here. This is One Child Abuse Survivor to Another. On for 30 minutes. It's a live internet streaming radio broadcast from blogtalkradio.com. Chat room's open, and I appreciate everybody tuning into my shows. Thank you very much for taking the time to do that and spend this time with me. I appreciate it. And I'm still getting over that cold, so hopefully you can hear me and understand what I'm saying. And just taking a look at some articles and whatnot that I found recently, looking through information regarding, the victim mentality versus man's responsibility, and this is all sort of biblical. It's all to do with man's view and God's view, and I just think it's interesting. And I'm a Christian, so this is my final leg of my healing journey here in the morning. I'm just going through I believe the last stages of my healing journey, which is to let go. And part of me wants to let go and just be able to move on and enjoy life and find joy and peace and happiness and personal, inside of myself, and just move on. And then the other part of me just wants to hang on to this stuff and wants to blame and hold grudges and just sort of be in a state of unforgiveness, And it's a hard walk. It's a very hard walk. And I'm studying, to be a Christian counselor, a biblical counselor with the Valley Bible School. That's the NANC certified school. And also I'm working on an associate's degree and a bachelor's degree in biblical studies and biblical counseling. So for me, this is very important work because I want to be able to help other people biblically, and so this needs to be able to work in my life. You know what I mean? Like I need to be able to say with absolute certainty that, oh yes, absolutely, this is truth, and this is what it all is. This is what it all comes down to biblically for people who are searching, for answers, through God's word and through the help, with the help of God and the Holy Spirit, right? Because I'm a Christian. And so this is where my heart is, and this is where God's really led me. And so I'm working on the last part of my healing journey, and I believe that this is it. This is the icing on top of the cake. You know what I mean? It's like I feel like once I can get through this stuff, I can really embrace life. You know what I mean? And that's coming out of a situation which I've been talking about for the last 2 years, of not being able to embrace life, not being able to be thankful, not being able to, I'm thankful for the roof over my head. I'm thankful for things in my life. I've never really been thankful to be alive. And it's always seemed like a real drag to me. It's just been a real hassle, you know what I mean? Like this whole life everything's been hard, you know what I mean? And that's just coming from a place of being abused as a child and knowing so much pain and knowing so much sorrow, not just for myself, but for other people, and then realizing that the whole world is dealing with this stuff. And it's a big burden, to carry, right? And I'm a Christian, so obviously, I believe that Jesus came to take those burdens upon himself, and he did so on the cross. And so what I need to do is allow myself to give that up, and give that up to my God, and say, this is yours now. I no longer need to carry this stuff. But it's a hard thing to let go of because I've been dealing with this and holding on to it for my whole life, right? And so it's sort of the same thing when someone outside of Christianity who's not a Christian would go through the same type of healing stuff and would just be able to let go, you know what I mean? And just at one point say, okay, that's it, enough is enough. I've held enough grudges. I've been angry long enough. I'm going to go ahead and let go. And I'm going to go ahead and just trust that it's okay and that I'm healed. And it's just letting go point, And so what I have to do is, in order to do that for me, I believe I have to change my heart because I don't want to let go at this point because I'm still in a lot of unforgiveness and stuff like that, dealing with the abuse. So that's what I was talking about yesterday. And so, thanks for listening, tuning in. I'm not a counselor yet. I hope to be certified and qualified and certified as a qualified counselor in the next couple of years, but I'm not a counselor, I'm not a therapist, right? I'm just a student. and I'm working on my own healing journey. You have to listen at your own discretion. You have to know what's good for you to listen to. So when you're listening to my shows, know that I'm talking about abuse, and I don't sugarcoat it. I tell it like it is. Abuse is a sensitive subject. It's disgusting. It's horrible. It's absolutely so evil and so wrong. You know what I mean? But I don't minimize it. I just tell it like it is, because that's what it is. It destroys. Abuse destroys people. It destroys children. It destroys families. It destroys people. And so I'm not talking about flowers and sunshine here. I'm talking about things that are incredibly hard to deal with. So if you're listening to this and you're just starting out on your healing journey, you want to be careful what you're listening to, and listen to all of my shows at your own discretion. If you think that it might bother you or trigger you, you need to make the right decision on your behalf, and don't listen to my shows, right? Not until you're in a place where you feel like you're strong enough or able to listen, right? Because I'm talking about some serious heavy-duty stuff. And young people under the age of 18, I ask that you have permission to listen to my shows, because my shows are really all about stopping abuse and child abuse, but they're not for children. They're not for younger children. There's a lot of adult material on my shows, adult content, and I think, anyone 18 and under should have an adult listen to a show with you, and they can help you decide whether or not it's age appropriate for you, right? So we'll get right into the show. And yesterday we left off. I was just briefly sort of talking about the fact that I still have a lot of anger and a lot of unforgiveness, towards my family and towards towards my abusers, and also towards some of my family members who just are not here for me. But I cut them off, and I did that on purpose. They would have still been hanging around in my life, had I not cut them off, right? Like, it's not that they didn't want to talk to me. I didn't want to talk to them, because their attitude has never changed. They still have that same attitude. I had conversations previously in the last few years before I cut my sister off. My sister's 5 years older than me, and we never really got along all that well. And none of my siblings got along that well. There was only 2 siblings that actually were buddies, and like 2 of my brothers, but the rest of us all just kind of did our own thing. And we just, did not grow together as a family, obviously not in that abusive situation. And so it was always looking out for number one, looking out for me. So my sister did the same thing. It's not her fault. I don't really blame her for that. She didn't know any other way. She didn't know how to cope, and nobody in my family knew how to cope with what was going on around us, and nobody came together to help each other. So it's not the only time anybody protected anybody was my brothers would stick up for each other when my dad was abusing one of them or trying to beat on them, because there was 3 brothers in the house at the same time. There was 5 of us in the home, 5 children in the home for a long time, until I was about just turning 8 years old. So after that, then people started to drift off or die or get killed or whatever. But me and my sister are not that close, and we have a lot of problems that we never did work out. And so it's hard, because if I would just not talk about the abuse and not talk about what happened and just go shopping with my sister, we can get along pretty good. But the minute I talk about God, or the minute I talk about the Bible, or and she claims to be a Christian, but she hates to hear the Word of God, which offends me, because I'm like, you can't be a Christian and hate the Word of God. You know what I mean? It's like, no, you would want to know God's Word. You'd want to know what God said, and you'd want to know what He's trying to get through to us. You know what I mean? And so, I just, our paths have just never been on the same path. And her God is shopping, really. Like, she's only happy when she's shopping, and she's only happy if someone will go shopping with her. And she holds people, like, liable and hostage if you don't go shopping with her. Like in other words, she won't hang out with you if you don't go shopping with her. Like, she'll leave you alone for like 6 months, and she won't call you because you turned down a shopping trip with her. Like, that's her life, that's her goal, that's her God, is shopping, right? And so it's too shallow for me. I'm looking at the deep, deep issues of life, and I'm looking at what happened in our family, because I'm trying to heal, I'm trying to grow as a person. And so, we've had conversations in the past about stuff and agree on a lot of what happened, as far as looking back at the horrific situation that we grew up in. But we don't have anything in common as adults, right? Because all she wants to do is shop, and all I want to do is get down to the business of healing. And so we really are not on the same page. And she doesn't quite understand why I've done this, like for the last 2 years, why I would speak out publicly about child abuse, and why I would why I would want to see this whole mess stop, because she doesn't want to acknowledge that she was abused as a child. So she knows, and we've talked about it, and it's like she knows the situation. She remembers the court sessions that my parents had to attend for being brought up on charges. My sister was 5 years older than me, so she remembers all that. But that's not the issue. She's in denial. She doesn't want to have to deal with the fact that two of our brothers killed themselves, and she just likes to look at it, the fact that, oh well, they were just bad. They were just, they were losers, right? And that's what the whole situation came down to, is that the family all labeled each one of us as something, you know what I mean, and didn't take a look at the actual cause of the root cause of the problem, which was just this evil, destructive and abusive environment we grew up in. But we have to take responsibility for ourselves, and I think that this is sort of where I left off yesterday, was looking at victim mentality versus personal responsibility. And this is from the Biblical Counseling Foundation, the BCF, and this is what I'm studying. I'm working through about 7 different courses. I'm getting credit for 2 of them. Two I'm actually working on for credit and for degrees and whatnot. But the other 5 I'm just doing as a supplement, because I'm studying everything I get my hands on with the time that I have, because I want to do this quickly. I want to hurry up and learn this stuff. I want to learn how to change my heart so I can help other people. I wish that I could have helped my brother who killed himself. And he's the one that sexually used me. You know what I mean? But the issue is that he was a person too, and God loved him too. And the issue is that he was so screwed up. You know what I mean? Like this guy, he was so screwed up. And I talk about this. I've talked about this really for the last 2 years, talking about like what my dad did to my brother, what the abuse and the environment, the effect that it had on my brothers, and it, sort of set them up for a huge fall. And it really set us all up for a huge fall. But 2 of my siblings didn't go that way. The older siblings all did their own thing, and not that they were all that happy, but they went on to have a pretty decent life. And so, they were affected by the abuse too, in a sense that they had to control everything. And one of my brothers left the country. He didn't run away. He just left the house at 16 years old. He was just gone. And my other sister got married and pregnant really young because she wanted to get out of the house. And my dad was abusing all of them. You know what I mean? And this was right just a year before I was born. And then I came along, and the abuse was still rampant, and my parents got brought up on charges, right? And so, of course, the abuse affected all of us, you know what I mean? But we all sort of handled it differently, and I kind of went the way that my brothers went, sort of, doing drugs and just not caring about life and wanting to kill myself. I sort of went the same way that two of my brothers went. And, at the age of 41, when I began my healing journey, really, is when I allowed love to come into my heart. Because I had so much pain in my heart. I had so much anger and so much rage and hatred for what had happened to me as a child and for what had happened to my family. So it wasn't just all about me. It was just the issues of just watching so much destruction around me of people that I loved and cared about. And I just realized that this is going on worldwide. And so my heart was in just such a bad place. I just wanted to die. I was just like, how long am I going to be in this pain? So 5 years, really, it's been April will really be 5 years I've been on my healing journey. And the last 2 have been pretty serious, heavy-duty stuff, going through what I needed to go through and face, in order to move forward. So that's what I've been doing here on these shows. But yesterday I was left off talking about victim mentality versus personal responsibility. And it's part 4, man's way versus God's way. It's part 4. I think there's 8 parts to that man's way versus God's way in this Biblical Counseling Foundation manual. And you can find this stuff if you go to Emmanuel's, www.emmanuels.org, IMMANUELS, Emmanuel's. It's a church website, but the issue is it's got all kinds of stuff on there. It's a biblical counseling course for people who are looking for biblical counseling. And or looking to teach good, to do biblical counseling, to become a counselor, right? But there's a manual there, the BCM manual. You can download that, and it's a zip file. And there's I don't know how many articles on there, but there's a lot of PDFs and whatnot on there, and that's what I'm kind of looking at. So that's where I got this information, where I'm looking here right now. It is from www.immanuels.org. So they said that they questioned the idea that, are we victims of our environment, like victim mentality versus being a victim, victim mentality versus personal responsibility. And that's what I was talking about yesterday. My mom was a victim all her life, and she was victimized. So she was abused as a child, and then she was in this abusive marriage. I've been talking about this for 2 years, but now I'm just looking at it biblically. And she was a victim her whole life. She was always a victim, and she really didn't feel like she was a person. She felt by the time I came around. As a matter of fact, I remember hearing her talking to somebody about the fact that one of my brothers called her by her first name one time, and she forgot that she had a first name. She said, I didn't even know I was a person. She lost herself. She completely lost herself, being abused as a child and then being in this abusive marriage. She really felt like a nobody, like a non-person. But that's the way she was being made to feel by my dad, because my dad was just treating her like a non-person, raping her and beating on her and slapping her around and hurting her children, which, she was hurting her children too, so she was just as guilty. But the thing is she was just like, okay, I'm a victim, so you know what, you're a victim. So she made us all victims under her wrath, right? So we all became her victim. She says, well, if you can't beat them, join them. That was her motto. So she couldn't overcome the abuse that she suffered as a child, and she didn't want to be a bad mother, but yet she turned into her mother. Not quite as bad as her mother, because her mother was horrific, but my mother was horrific too. And like the two of them, she basically became her mother. And what my mother did was try to turn me into her. She saw basically that I would have been just like my mother or like my grandmother, this horrible, abusive woman who would not take responsibility for my own actions and who would abuse other people and be great to neighbors, be good to everybody else. Sure, be nice to the people you work with and then go home and trash your family. Well, that's what my parents were both doing. They were both they were okay in society. Everybody liked them. As a matter of fact, they had all kinds of friends, but they hated each other. So when they would come home, it would be like, there's so many things I would like to say on the air here, but it's really foul. And, I just want people to understand the depth of the horror and the garbage that they put on each other. And then, of course, sort of drip down onto us. You know what I mean? Like, this was not, oh, honey, I love you one day, and the next day, you're a bastard, or, they hated each other. Especially by the time I came around. Before I was born, I can't really tell you too much. I only know what my siblings told me, but, like, when I came around, by the time I came around, they hated each other, literally hated each other. And my dad would be calling my mother names, and my mom would be, like, calling him names, and they would be screaming at each other. It wouldn't be like, oh, you're a bastard. They would be screaming at the top of their lungs, at the very top of their lungs, in the car, in the house, in the backyard, didn't matter where they were. If they were in the same room together, it was going to be hell. It was going to be a problem. It was going to be a fight. So my parents didn't stay in the same room very often in order to try to keep some peace, because they almost lost us to the courts, right? They were brought up on abuse charges for physically abusing and psychologically abusing all of us, right? So, they were bad news when they were in the same room together. So it was always a little scary when they came in the same room together, like especially in the kitchen, because my mother had all kinds of weapons in there. And if my dad came in the kitchen, it was kind of like a little scary. We all ate separately. Nobody ate together. My mom fed all the kids separately. She did that on purpose because my dad had been abusing the kids before at the table, at the kitchen table. And that's one of the, my dad was an abusive man. He was abusing his sons, and he was abusing his daughter. And, they couldn't even have a meal together. My dad would be abusing the kids. My mother, in order to protect the kids, really, that's what she said anyway, started to feed everybody separately. So we never ate together as a family. And the only time we ever ate together as a family is if we went out to somebody's house, like a neighbor. If a neighbor invited us over to their house, they would have us all over. And if we were all sitting at the table, fine. If the kids were all sitting at a kids' table and the adults would be sitting at an adults' table, it was still dangerous with my parents, because they still had a hard time being in the same room together. So even at neighbors' homes, it was always a little bit scary, because sometimes the fights would break out in neighbors' homes. And they wouldn't be so physical about it, but they would be like cursing each other and screaming at each other. My mom would be throwing things, and this was just their behavior. It was just absolutely unacceptable and absolutely a horrible way to grow up, and a bad example for us on how to behave, right? So my sister took on the role of my mother when she grew up. She took on this role of, I'm going to control the situation. You're going to be a victim. You know, I'm going to be the one who's going to be in charge because I need to be in control, because she was abused. Obviously, the oldest daughter, the oldest sibling, my oldest sister, who's now passed away. She died from cancer a few years ago. But the thing is that she was the controlling one in the home, and she beat on her husband and her kids. And she was just like my mother, selfish and greedy. And honestly, I mean, selfish. She wouldn't let her children get a drink of water out of the fridge. They had to go outside to use the hose. And if you needed the bathroom, you had to go down to the gas station. Like, she wouldn't even let us use the bathroom. Like, when I'd be over there visiting or staying for dinner or whatever. Sometimes I stayed overnight, not very often, thank God, because I didn't like them very much, especially as a child, because they were scary. They reminded me of my parents. It wasn't any better at their home than it was at mine. And so my sister reminded me a lot of my mom because she was abusive, right? And so she would lock us out of the house, and we weren't allowed to even come in to go to the bathroom. She'd be, I was knocking on the door one time when I was very little, about 6 years old. I was like, knock, 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 I need the bathroom. And she was like, go down to the gas station. So I had to go down to the bloody gas station to use the bathroom and drink out of a hot hose in the middle of the desert. We're talking, this is like a desert situation. This is summertime, it's hot there. The water coming out of the hose is going to be hot. It's going to be disgusting. And so, you know, but this is how she treated her children. She was no better to her children, really, than my mother was to her children. There was very little love in that home. She didn't know how to show it. She didn't know how to give it. She didn't know how to receive it. She was exactly like my mother. She didn't know how to receive love. She didn't know how to give it. This is where these issues come into play, really, for me, and why I believe that God truly exists. Because God is love. And God, to me, is love and goodness and mercy and compassion and everything that is good, and obviously righteousness and judgment, right? Thank God. And so for me, it's real easy to see where the issues of the heart lie, you know, where people's hearts are really at, you know what I mean? And whether and what kind of person they are. Call me a moralist, whatever you want, you know, and I don't care. I've just been through hell. So, you know, I see such a contrast between good and evil, right? Some people may be walking more of a you know, a wider road on that because maybe they received love as a child. Maybe they had somebody in their family that loved them and cared about them. You know, I grew up in hell where nobody cared about anybody. Like, I grew up in a home where nobody cared about the kids, and my parents didn't care about each other, so I was not shown how to love, and I wasn't shown how to receive love. And even though when I was a little tiny kid, I remember having love in my heart, especially for my mother, because I just loved her. And I think what it was is I needed her. I really needed safety, security. I needed because it was a dangerous house to live in. It was a dangerous situation. And my mother was one of the dangerous people, but I loved her, you know. And I was really always trying to get her to show that love back to me. I mean, what she would do is push me back. She would push me down, literally outside, even in the front yard. Like, I'd go to hug her, and she would push me down. She'd be like, "Get away from me, you know. Don't get near me. Go away." Right. So then I'd be like, well, why? You know what I mean? Like, I just wanted a hug, you know, or I wanted to hug my mother, and she wouldn't let me even touch her. She wouldn't let me hug her, and she wouldn't hug me. You know, she would beat me, you know, and she would slap me around, and she would spit in my face, but she would not hug me. So my parents would not, and my dad, when he touched me, it was very sexual. Like, he was a bit of a molester, I think. You know what I mean? Like, it was like when he touched you, it was all, you could feel it. It was like his intentions were not good. You know what I mean? And that's why I seriously think that he sexually abused one of my brothers, at least one of my brothers, if not more. And, well, he was raping my mother in front of me. You know what I mean? He raped my mother in front of me when I was a little kid. So I didn't trust him. I didn't want him to touch me. But the thing is my mom, I was looking for that love. I was looking for that security, that safety. Because what are people looking for? What are children looking for? Children are looking for security. They need to know that they're secure in their relationships with their mother, with their dad, with whoever's raising them, whether it's the grandparent or it doesn't matter who's raising you. Children are looking for and need to feel that security, that secure place where they know it doesn't matter what they do, that person's going to take care of them, they're going to be there, they're going to nurture them, they're going to feed them, they're going to make sure their needs are met, they're going to actually show them some love and care, They might even read a bedtime story to them, and they're not going to hurt them, And if they do hurt them, they're going to apologize. They're going to make it right. That's what children are really looking for, you know what I mean? And then as adults, we're looking for the same thing, aren't we? I mean, we're looking for the same thing in friendships. We're looking for friends who will be there for us no matter what, even on our worst days when we're acting like idiots, That we're hoping that they'll call us the next day so that we can tell them how stupid we were being, you know what I mean? Like, we want people to be in our lives who will show us that, no, it's secure, the attachment's secure, and they're secure in who you are. They're secure in who they are. I mean, that's what children are just basically fundamentally looking for that stuff as children, and then as adults, we're doing the same thing. We're just older, So it's like we're looking for that security, that sense of acknowledgement, that sense of I see you, I love you, and I'm here for you, sort of thing. That secure attachment, sort of thing. And, we don't get that. When you don't get love, when you don't get any kind of safety or security, a child will either really pursue it, even more so by acting out or doing whatever they have to do to get it, or they'll shut down. And they'll just sit in the corner because they know they're not going to get it. So, I mean, studying, the psychology and studying the, child psychology and whatnot, you can see that. Like, children will go a couple of different ways, when there's not a secure attachment. And they'll either act out, and do whatever they have to do to get any attention, whether it's good or bad, or they will shut down, And for me, I just acted out. I would just do whatever I had to do to make sure that somebody saw me in that home, because I was the last born. I was just a tiny baby in this home with a whole lot of adults and one 5-year-old and a 7-year-old. And so there were a couple of younger siblings next to me who were still young when I was born. But by the time I was 5, my sister was 10. And by the time I was 5, my brother was 12. And then, so they were much too old to be playing with, you know what I mean? So I was really on my own, playing in the backyard or playing, with friends and stuff on the block when I had a couple of friends that I was allowed to play with. And, I was looking for something and looking for love, you know what I mean? And love just wasn't there. And I think all children know love. And that's why I believe that all children can see God. And I think that we know who God is. And many of us even my nephew was an atheist for a long time. Now he wants to be a preacher, but not because of me, just on his own. Like somewhere along the road, he changed his mind. But he was an atheist, and my sister was an atheist, right? And I know lots of people who are atheists. And, they just don't believe in anything. They just don't believe there's anything at all. I do. I believe there is. And the reason why I do is because, to me, it's obvious. We wouldn't even be able to question it or ask the question if there wasn't. I believe that God gave us a little bit of himself. And like he said in his word, he says, I will give you, my spirit so you can understand and you can know me. And that's intimately know him. You know what I mean? We know who he is. I know who he is. And I've known God was there all along. I was just kind of mad at him, and I was really angry at him because I thought he was just leaving me to suffer in this mess by myself, and that he didn't care, because to me, growing up, nobody cared, and so it just seemed to me that God didn't care. And I couldn't trust my parents, and I couldn't trust my family, I couldn't trust the world, so I couldn't trust God. So I just built this issue of not being able to trust anybody, including myself. And so there's victim mentality versus personal responsibility. This is where we'll continue on, I guess, tomorrow. But, my parents set us up for this victim role, and they stayed in it their whole lives. My dad blamed, the devil for everything that he did, or the 1960s, he says. It was the 1960s, and it was the devil that made him hurt his wife and hurt his family. And my mom blamed my dad, saying, it's all your father's fault, that it's not my fault. And I was perfect, right? My mother had this idea that she was not abusive, and that she was my abuser, my main abuser, and she was highly abusive. And did she ever take responsibility for it? No. So this is what we're going to pick up tomorrow. Are we victims of our environment? And sort of take a look through there. So thanks everybody for tuning in. I appreciate it. Have a great day. Take good care of yourselves, and we'll talk to you again tomorrow. If you're having troubles and you're just not able to cope and whatnot, don't give up. Keep looking for that help where you can find it. Sometimes people aren't around. Sometimes people are busy, they're working, or sometimes friends just can't get involved because it's too much. For survivors, sometimes people just don't have the strength to deal with what we've got going on. But there are people out there who do, and generally you can find them by reaching out. And so, if you're feeling like you just can't cope and you're just like, I don't know what I'm going to do, if I don't even think I can get through today, you do not allow yourself to give up, not ever. Because you know what, there is going to be tough days. It is going to be hard, but you have to do the right thing. Phone a crisis line or get in touch with somebody who can help you, because, or just keep looking for that one thing that's going to help you. Don't ever give up, right? Because it's just not an option. You have to make it not an option. It has to be something inside you that says, no, giving up is not an option. I'm going to suffer on through this until I get it right. And the issue is it is our responsibility. Absolutely it is. We can't expect somebody else to do that for us. That's why I wasn't healing. That's why I wasn't moving forward in my healing journey. Because until 5 years ago, I thought somebody else would be able to help me do this. I thought somebody else would be able to take away my pain. I thought God could take away my pain. And then I wanted to kill myself because I needed to be out of the pain. And I'm so thankful that I stuck around. And I tell you what, I'm a big proponent for suicide prevention. Obviously, I talk about it all the time. Do not give up. Not ever. We have the opportunities. They are in front of us, but we have to reach out and we have to take hold of it. Because if you don't, it's just going to pass you by. Don't allow that to happen. Reach out. Get some help, no matter where it is, counselor, therapy, group support, which I love group support. Whatever it is, reach out and get some help, right? Have a great day. Talk to you real soon.